want you to look with me just briefly here in Proverbs chapter 6, verses 20 through 22. And it says, "My son, keep your father's commandment, forsake not your mother's teaching. Bind them on your heart always, tie them around your neck. When you walk, they will lead you. When you lie down, they will watch over you. And when you awake, they will talk with you." Now, I don't know about you, but I have to be honest and say that my mother has taught me a lot about life. You know, sometimes moms teach you what not to do. Sometimes moms make mistakes too. And they're quick to tell you, "I was wrong. I shouldn't have said that. I shouldn't have done that. I shouldn't have hit you with..." I'm just kidding. I should not have thrown that at you. I apologize. And don't tell your dad why the TV is broken. But moms teach us a lot of good things about life too. Like my mother always taught me, don't come crying to me. If you get in a fight, you finish it yourself. My mom always taught me, if you get hurt, don't act like a sissy. Get up, you'll be all right. My mom taught me, if you're gonna act like that, you go live with somebody else. I ain't raising no sissy boy like you. My mom was not the most hands-on, affectionate type. Anybody got a mom like that? Moms that don't always hold you and coddle you and rub your hair and tell you how cute you are and pat you on the back and do all that kind of stuff. You know what I mean? The little less affectionate types, right? Anybody got a mom like that?
I just don't coddle.
Well, my plan worked. Not all of us had that type of a mother, and I'm grateful for the mother that I had. I could tell you story after story, which I would get in grave trouble for if I did, and I'll leave those between my mom and I, of things that I learned. I will tell you, I'll never forget I asked my mom how do women get babies in their belly. She said they eat watermelon seeds. So we banished watermelon from our house. My mother, apparently some snuck in. What?
That didn't work.
No, it did not work very well. Apparently cantaloupe does the same thing. I remember many things that my mother taught me as we went along through life. But there's something that I've come to learn and come to appreciate as I've grown a little bit older. I'm still not old, am I? There is nothing more beautiful, there's nothing more perfect in its description of, nothing that quite captures the love of God like the love of a mother. My wife would always joke that my grandmother passed away last year, and she always joked that I could go out and murder somebody, and my grandmother would find some way of not only justifying it, but glorifying it. Well, he did such a good job. I mean, look at how he cleaned up after. It's wonderful. That's my grace. That's how you do it. I will now be investigated by every federal agency out there when this goes public. I have personally known what it means to be unconditionally loved. Now, my grandmother was not above correcting me when the time came for it. It was just that you really had to deserve it for her to do it, because I was just such a precious little angel in her eyes. And I was pretty darn cute with them ugly glasses I used to have. But there's nothing more fitting of a description of a loving God than the love of a mother. I want you to think about this for a moment this morning. Now, we're not going to go super theological on Mother's Day, but I do want to trace you back to Genesis 3. What happens in the garden is that Lucifer goes straight for the rock, the cornerstone, the precipice, the principle, the image of the love of God. He goes right for Eve, and he goes to Eve and says, did God really say that? Why did he go after Eve? Why did he make an effort to go after Eve? Because if he got Eve, he would get Adam. Yes? If he got Eve, he would get Adam. Not only would he get Adam, but he would also get all those who would come after them. Because there is no influence quite like the influence of a mother. Now, I know our modern day feminism tells women that they have to be self-reliant and independent, stand on their own 2 feet. I don't need no man. The Bible teaches us something very different. The Bible teaches us something completely different. The Bible tells us that you see the picture of Christ and His church in the relationship between a husband and a wife. What is the fruit of the relationship of a husband and wife? It is children. This morning, why are you here in this congregation? Because someone loved Jesus. And that relationship between that person and their Lord produced a new believer in their witness and in their testimony to you. This morning, you and I are here because of our mother and father coming together, becoming one flesh and producing offspring. I would love to be able to say this morning that all of us here are the products of a loving home. I would love nothing more than to be able to stand before you this morning and declare that there's not a single one of us that have never known the sting of divorce or the pain of death or the hurt of neglect. I would love to be able to tell you that. But I can't. I can't tell you that. Because there are many here in this congregation right now who, while we are celebrating Mother's Day, have a lot of hurt. A lot of heartache. A lot of pain. Some of you, Mother's Day conjures up some pretty bad memories. For some people, Mother's Day is quite hurtful. Why is that? Because just as in the garden, Lucifer knows if he can get Eve, he can get you. The very name of Eve says mother. Mother of all living. When God cried out or called out, maybe cried out, maybe that it was a slip of the tongue that was appropriate. When God cried out to His creation and He says, "Where are you?" He was calling out to Father. And He was calling out to Mother. And He called out to Father and Mother and He says, "I want to fix what is broken. Allow me to do so. All you've got to do is come and give it to me." And this morning, that same cry is going out all over this earth. And God is saying to Mother and Father, "Please let me fix you. Let me fix you." When you look at the relationship between a husband and a wife, the love and the affection that a husband has for his wife, the passion that he feels in serving, in leading, in being what he should be as a man, the respect and the tenderness and the gentleness that comes from the loving support that his wife offers him. When the two come together and they work in tandem, there is nothing, absolutely nothing more powerful in this physical world than that of the bond of a husband and a wife. So then, is it any secret why the enemy comes so fast and furious against marriage? The Bible says that a man will leave his father and mother and will cleave to his wife, and the two will become one flesh, and then they will produce offspring, but that's not how it always goes, is it? Be wonderful, Lord. Wouldn't it, Steve, if everybody just said, "I'm going to get find me a wife. I'm going to find me a husband. And I'm going to start a family." And oftentimes, offspring comes as a shock. Sometimes offspring are viewed as an inconvenience. Because I've got other things I want to do with my life. I have other things to carry on with. This is just going to complicate and get in the way of my plans. Instead of carrying out this responsibility, I just deal with it the way I see fit. Husband and wife come together, they get married, have absolutely zero love for one another, and then they wonder why there's such turmoil in our families. Husbands selfishly serve themselves, and wives recklessly rebel against the authority of the Lord, and we wonder why we're in the shape that we're in. I want you to think about this with me this morning. if Lucifer's number one goal was to corrupt Adam and Eve so as to corrupt their offspring, then wouldn't it seem fitting? Wouldn't it seem right that if that would be the most dangerous threat to our enemy, would that not also be the clearest and most beautiful picture of us in Christ? I would love this morning to be able to tell you that everyone who comes to church loves Jesus. I would love to be able to tell you that everyone who comes to church seeks nothing more than to please Him and to mirror or reflect or to reciprocate His love back to Him. That's not always the case. Some folks just come to church because that's what they've always done. Some folks just got married because that's what you're supposed to do. Some folks just come to church because they want the benefits of it. Some folks just got married because they wanted the benefits of it. I want to say something very, very clearly to the young men in our congregation this morning. If you have met a young lady who is ignorant and foolish enough to say that she would be willing to marry you, if you have been blessed by the Lord with a young woman who says she wants to spend the rest of her life with you, I want to encourage you this morning to spend as much time in prayer as you possibly can and ask the Lord to prepare you to be for her what she needs you to be. Don't be like Adam. Don't be like Adam and just say, well, whatever you say, honey, that's fine. I don't care. As long as I get my beer and my recliner, I'm happy. Whatever you think. No. Pray that God make you a man that will lead His home. Pray that God will make you a man who will stand up and be what God has called you to be, so that when that wonderful day comes, when the two of you come together and produce a child, that you will be able to not only love that wife, but that you will be able to love that child. If you cannot love the mother of the child, you'll never be able to love that child, because part of that child is its mother. Pray that God will lead you, will teach you, will show you what you need to do in order to live a selfless life. Mothers have enough stress worrying about, did I forget to pack their lunch? Did I put their socks in their bag? Did I turn the stove off? Is the water still running in the bathtub? I can't remember because I've got 4 kids running in circles around me. What was I supposed to bring to work today? Did I pay for their field trip? Did I do this? Did I do that? All of the last thing they need is to have to deal with you and your ignorant selfishness. Pray that the Lord would teach you how to be what your wife needs you to be, in order that she might be the mother that you and your children need her to be. The Bible tells us for husbands to love their wives just as Christ loved the church, to give yourself for her, to live selflessly, to lay down your own life in order to serve her. The Bible tells us for wives to honor our husbands. Or honor, not let's get this straight here. To honor your husbands. To reverence and respect them. In order that the two of you may be able to walk in tandem and walk in unity as you lead your family, your children, in the ways of the Lord. This morning, I pray that there would be no one here, no wife, no mother here this morning that would ever say, I just don't get what I need. I just don't get what I need in order to be what I need to be. The only way for you to be able to receive what you need from the Lord is for you to make sure that you yourself are living a selfless life and asking, just as your husband does, for the Lord to teach you how to be what you need to be. When the Bible refers to the church, it refers to her as the bride of Christ. The bride produces offspring for the Lord and new believers. And the health of the church is seen in the way that it treats one another, the way that it produces new offspring, and its beauty is found. Its beauty is found in its walk with her husband. I want to echo what others have said here this morning, and I'm very grateful for all of you women here this morning. I'm very thankful, as Matt said, that we have great examples. Great examples of mothers here. Great examples for us to follow and live by and to look to. Ladies, you do understand that young women are watching you, and I thank you for that. You know that young ladies are going to model their lives on the way you live yours, and I'm grateful that you see that and that you watch out for those little traps that the enemy may set, that you're keeping your attitude in check, that you're keeping your walk with the Lord in accordance with what His Word would say. I thank you that you are being responsible and that you are teaching and showing and coming up alongside young women and showing them how that they should live and how that they should be. I thank you for that. We're not just mothers to the children that we have in our own home. We're also examples and mothers to those in this congregation. Lord, I couldn't begin to list off all the women that I remember as a child that took me under their wing, beat me, taught me, and that I modeled. I modeled the image of what a woman of God to be. I'm grateful this morning. Hopefully you men are also grateful for all of the women who are here, who help your wife, the mother of your children, as she raises her children. They provide an example, because sometimes mom, it just doesn't matter what she says. Say it till you're blue in the face, and when they hear it from somebody else, it just happens to click. And you think to yourself, you big dummy, I've said that to you for 5 years now. And she says it one time and you get it. I'm grateful for that. I'm grateful that this morning that we have a congregation full of what Proverbs 31 says a woman, a wife, a mother would be. In closing, I want to read this to you from Proverbs 31. It says, an excellent wife, an excellent mother, who can find? She's far more precious than jewels. The heart of her husband trusts in her, and he will have no lack of gain. She does him good and not harm all the days of her life. She seeks wool and flax and works with willing hands. She's like the ships of the merchant. She brings her food from afar. She rises while it is yet night and provides food for her household and portions for her maidens. She considers a field and buys it. With the fruit of her hands she plants a vineyard. She dresses herself with strength and makes her arms strong. She perceives that her merchandise is profitable. Her lamp does not go out at night. She puts her hands to the staff and her hands hold the spindle. She opens her hands to the poor and reaches out her hands to the needy. She's not afraid of snow for her household, for all her household are clothed in scarlet. She makes bed coverings for herself. Her clothing is fine linen and purple. Her husband is known in the gates when he sits among the elders of the land. She makes linen garments and sells them. She delivers sashes to the merchant. Strength and dignity are her clothing, and she laughs at the time to come. She opens her mouth with wisdom, and the teaching of kindness is on her tongue. She looks well to the ways of her household and does not eat the bread of idols. Her children rise up and call her blessed, her husband also, and he praises her. Many women have done excellently, but you surpass them all. Charm is deceitful and beauty is vain, but a woman who fears the Lord is to be praised. Give her of the fruit of her hands, and let her works praise her in the gates. This morning I want to say from this pulpit, thank you. Some of you are expected mothers. Some of you, first-time mothers. Some of you, this is just another day in the park. Some of you have lost your mind. But we are ever and eternally grateful for the incredibly difficult job that you not only do, but you do with grace and with joy. We are grateful for your example that we have to look to see the unconditional love of God. Selflessness on display. And that is not to negate those ladies who are not able to have children, have not had children. We want to say this morning that you too are just as valuable. The two of the biggest influences in my life were my great uncle Frank Williams. For those of you who may remember him, he worked at Bendix, I believe, for a little while. He worked at Luke John Metal in Frankfurt for many years before my grandfather started his heat and air business, and Frank went to work for him. And my great aunt, his wife, Ann. Frank and Ann, it was all one word for me that you never saw them apart. They weren't separable, you know. They were always together. But Frank and Ann had no children, no physical children. They could not have children. But I don't know that there was ever a time that there weren't children in their home. Frank and Ann were the adopted parents of numerous children in the church, not literally but figuratively adoptive parents. They were the adoptive parents of all my cousins. Everybody wanted to go to their house. Frank was the most fun. He was a man's man. He had all the tools in the garage you could shake a stick at. Ann was an unbelievably loving and caring and tender woman who took care of everybody. I remember coming home from school and she would come down to the house to help my mom because my mom worked. She would help my mom by cleaning her house for her once or twice a week. I don't know. When I would come home, there would be in the refrigerator homemade biscuits and fried eggs. I loved cold biscuits and eggs. Don't ask. I don't know why. I know, but I loved them. I would eat a whole plate of them. Loved it. Ann did not have any children to call her own. But Ann had many children. For those of you here who may not have been able to have or do not have children, do not think that you don't have a place to be recognized and honored here this morning. Thank you, guys. Thank you for all you do. And please don't stop. Please don't stop. If you do, we're up Duty Creek without a paddle. I hope you have the best day you can possibly have. I hope that your husbands, your fiancés, your boyfriends, whatever you ladies, I hope that this day today is unbelievable for you. I'll say this as we close. Not everything goes according to our plans, does it? Not everything goes the way we would like for it to go. But aren't you glad that the Lord can restore? Aren't you glad that though you may have had some difficulties in life and in family in the past, that the Lord can bring someone into your life who will honor you and respect you and love you and treat you the way that you deserve to be treated? Aren't you glad that the Lord has a way of working things out for your good? I know sometimes on Mother's Day people get a little down and out and feel like the mistakes, the things they endured in their past hurt their children, or hurt their family. But moms, I want to tell you a little secret. It's not what you do in the moment always. It's not always what you do in that particular moment of time. But it's what you are over the long haul. I would not have put up with me if I were my mother. Don't you laugh, John Perkins. Don't you laugh. Don't be telling stories either. But she did. She did. I may not ever know why, but I sure am glad that she did. And I sure am glad that you all do for your families, your children as well. Would you stand with me this morning?